Hi guys, welcome back to the Ghost Tea Podcast.
My name is Paloma.
And my name is Jackie.
And starting off, we would like to thank everyone that tuned in to our last episode. Today we will be talking about a couple true crime cases that happened here in Kyle.
Disclaimer for today's episode, there are going to be some serious topics that we're going to be talking about today. One being child abuse, another being some people getting unalived. So if you're not comfortable with today's topics, maybe you could tune in for our next episode.
Yeah, it's gonna be more of a horror episode. A horror episode. So yeah, if you're into more of that stuff, then probably next episode would be better for you.
2 of the cases are about child abuse, and one of the cases just about is about people being unalived. We're gonna be putting timestamps in the description on YouTube if you don't want to listen to the child abuse, because I know for some people it is harder to listen to those things. So if you're not comfortable with that, we will have the timestamps in the description box.
Yes, I would like to say that the second one is a little bit, well, they're both horrible. It was really hard researching these cases, but the second one made me literally want to throw up. So we will be putting those timestamps in there in case, you guys don't want to listen to that.
So for our episodes, the way that they are going to work is, at the moment, we're going to be starting in Kyle, Texas, which is our hometown. We're going to be going to different states, talking about true crime / horror things that happen in each state. So the way that we're thinking of doing this was, since we're starting in central Texas, we're going to go up north to Texas, because a lot of towns don't have a bunch of true crime things that have happened there. So we're going to do North Texas, East Texas, South Texas, and then go to West Texas. And after we're done with the West Texas area, we're going to move down to Mexico and talk about stuff that happened in Mexico. And then once we're kind of done with Mexico, we're going to come back up and go to different states in the U.S.
Yes. Okay, so a little bit of a description of Kyle. In my eyes, we both grew up here. We've been here our whole life, so we saw it ever since it was literally almost nothing. There was, I don't know about you, but when I was here, there was just La Mexicana. That was all there was.
Whenever I got here, I think that the biggest thing that was in Kyle was HEB, but that wasn't built until probably not even 5-7 years after being here.
Yeah,
there was literally nothing. There was small mom and pop shops.
Gas station, right?
Yeah, there was literally nothing. My mom would have to go to Austin or San Marcos if she wanted to get any groceries or anything, really.
Yeah, and now Kyle is growing so fast. I think it's one of the fastest growing cities in Texas, so it's crazy seeing all these people move here, mostly because of Austin, I guess. But yeah, it is very populated now, and honestly, I would never think that anything bad would happen here. It's crazy when we research these things and there was actually stuff happening.
Yeah.
And stuff that we've never heard of.
Because you wouldn't think that in a small town, because usually whenever I listen to true crime stuff, they usually talk about how, a cute little small town, it was so safe. And that's honestly how it felt for most of my life. I don't know about you, but for most of my life it just felt safe. Obviously you need to lock your doors, but a lot of the times I didn't feel the need to lock my door, or to be scared that something was gonna happen, because it was family. Basically, you're growing up with your family, and everyone knew everyone in the town.
Mm-hmm. And also there was a lot of, I feel when we were growing up, in high school, there was a lot more of drugs going on, drug deals and stuff like that. But I never used to hear of murders or or scary stuff like that.
Yeah, so we're not gonna give too much information, but yeah, a lot of the people that we grew up with are getting into bad things that you would never think, because Kyle used to be pure. That's the best way to describe it. Whenever you would think of Austin, you would think of things always happening there, because things were always happening there. You would think of Austin as not to put it in a way, but my mom, people that I knew would call it ghetto, because you would go to Austin and that's where everything would happen. And now that's what Kyle has turned into. There's been so many things going on, the fentanyl crisis, which we're going to be talking about pretty soon.
Yes, well, we'll be doing an episode on that, because it's really, really crazy. But today we'll be talking about a couple cases that I don't think either of us have heard of. Yeah,
No.
and we don't know each other's cases, so this is the first time we're gonna be hearing each other's cases.
Oh yeah, like if you tuned into our last episode, we kind of described how we were gonna do this, but basically, I don't know her cases, she doesn't know my cases, and this is gonna be like our first time listening to these things, and we researched on our cases, and we're just gonna be presenting them to each other like we were giving each other tea.
Yes, this one's called the Ghosty Podcast. Shout out to my sister, by the way,
Oh,
for
yeah.
the name.
She got on her.
She's the one that came up with the name, so she is the co-founder.
Thank you, Blanca, for coming up with this beautiful name of ours.
Yes. Okay, so I will be getting into my first story. Trigger warning: child abuse. This was a very hard story to research. A little bit of the backstory is that Mason was born in October of 2016 to Desiree and Stevie Williams. Fast forwarding into the story, so Mason's parents brought him into the hospital because of burns that were accidentally caused during a bath, or so they say. Mason was found to have 14 fractures. 1 was in his wrist and 13 in his ribs. Like, can you imagine how much pain he was in to have 14 fractures? That is insane to me.
Wait, how old is he?
He is 3 months.
3 months.
3 months. So he was born in October of 2016, and this was in January 2017. Yeah, it makes me want to beat up the parents.
And like, wait, so like, since you have a kid, how easy is it for a kid to get injured? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I know they're really like soft, very like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know that they're like, I don't know anatomy, but I know that their bones are still like growing into being like whole, I guess.
But when you really think about it, people say that like babies, when they're born, their bones are like stretchy.
Yeah,
they're not fully formed. So I would think it's harder for them to be injured.
Damn.
I would think, but I mean, I don't know. I'm no doctor, so don't take my word for this. But yes, so in July of 2018, so at this time he was almost 2 years old, Desiree called 911 claiming that Mason had never woken up from his nap and he had stopped breathing. Desiree said that and sorry if I'm saying the name wrong, but I'm just gonna say Desiree. Desiree said her daughter woke up first and then let Mason sleep. She said that her husband was the first to realize something was wrong. Quote, they went to sleep like any other day and Mason just didn't wake up. They noticed no bruising and, quote, this is what they said, it looked like something had attacked him. So I don't know exactly what that means, because they say they didn't notice any bruising, but they were like, yeah, it looked like something attacked him. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Stevie said he believed it was demons or something evil that injured Mason, not him or his wife. So whenever they took the baby in, for forensics and all that, they noticed bruising and other evidence suggesting that death had occurred hours earlier. So he had been unalived for a very long time. 12 minutes earlier from when they called 911, parents had made multiple calls to tell family members that the boy was dead. Mason's death resulted from someone squeezing the child's body, depriving him of brain of oxygen. So they found out that someone had pretty much squeezed them, which is very like hard to think about. The mom was very iffy and like back and forth about the injuries and really never gave a certain answer. And I wish I had like the interview that they did on her, but they never released it. The trial began on April 25th of 2018. The mom was charged with life in prison without parole. They terminated the parents' rights because, like I said, they had another child. So they took the child away from them. And they terminated the rights to have her. The dad was also convicted of capital murder, but not until October of 2021. And he is also serving a sentence without parole. It's a really short story. If you wanted to read more on it, you can see how they, I don't know what they were trying to, cover it up with, but they were trying to cover it up saying that, something had attacked the baby and, they didn't know what it was and, it was something evil. And that's just crazy to me. And the fact that the kid had a lot of bruising and a lot of, injuries, it just made me, very... I just can't imagine, having a kid is, how could you possibly hurt an innocent life?
I don't like listening to cases like this. Whenever the Giovanna Hernandez thing came out, the Netflix series came out, it was really hard to watch it, but it was really an important thing to watch, honestly, because I work in childcare. So I know that if anything was to happen to any of the kids that I was caring for, and they had told me their concerns or things that were happening at home, and I didn't take it seriously, and then something happened to that child, I don't know how I would be able to live with myself. Because, like, I've had times where the kids tell me things and I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound right. So I'll talk to the parent and then they'll explain it to me. And I'd rather that over not saying anything and letting something happen to that child, you know? Because it's sad to say, but the system isn't like, the system sucks. And every time I hear cases of things like this happening, it makes me really upset. Like, I don't have kids, but like, that's horrible. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people shouldn't even have kids by the way that they treat them, the way that they are with them, but
Yeah, and you have to be a really fucking shitty person to neglect and abuse someone that can't even, like,
that's defenseless.
Yeah,
They can't defend themselves. They're
and someone's so pure. I feel like kids are so pure. Like, they just are always so happy and joyful, and it's like, how could you possibly hurt someone like that? I can't. It blows my mind, and I think they are the shittiest kind of people there is in this world.
Yeah, it's just really hard to hear of kids going through things like that, or like especially like there has been a lot of cases recently of like child abuse, like getting popular in like the world, and it's crazy to hear that these parents don't even think that they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like that it's their right to treat their kid how they want to. And it's really sad because the kid doesn't have a fault in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just hard to listen to cases of anything that happens with kids, honestly.
Yeah.
For my case, I'm going to be talking about what happened to Tina and Jim. First off, I would like to say that I don't mean any disrespect to anyone involved in this case. And I hope people are not rude or mean over anything they say, especially about the victims, because there was a lot of information about one of the victims. So just want to put that out there. Also, disclaimer, I am going to be talking about people being unalived and drug use. So if you're not comfortable with that, that's my disclaimer. All right. First, I'm going to start by talking about the victims and who they were as people before they passed. So, who is Tina Renee Combs? She was born on May 16th, 1971, and she was 44 years when she passed. She was the daughter of Donald Combs and Linda. She had 7 kids, 2 husbands, a granddaughter, and 1 ex-fiance. She was originally from Anderson, Indiana, and I'm going to be talking later on about how she made her way down to Texas. So, I'm going to be reading a quote from her kids that was posted on their GoFundMe. They were raising money to move their mother's body back to Indiana, since she was found in Kyle, Texas. So, quote, always willing to help anyone in need, our mother had such a kind and beautiful spirit. She had a love for her children that was unconditional. Her laugh could fill an entire room, and her smile would bring light to everyone around her. Mom could do anything she set her mind to. Everything about her was unique, even her home. From owning exotic animals to her handcrafted house decor. She was an all-in-one kind of woman. She could change your oil, fix your house, plan magnificent garden, and cook like a boss. Her goofy personality could make anyone laugh. We hope for the best service possible for our beloved mother. And like I said, that was from their GoFundMe. So at the time of her death, she was out of work, just divorced, and in need of some good fortune. Tina was 18 when she married Randy, a childhood friend of her older brother. By then, they had 1 child, Mitchell. Their first daughter, Miranda, came along in 1994, 6 years later. Tina and Randy would have their second son, Mason, then another daughter, Madison. They built a good, happy life for each other. Randy and Miranda both report big house, big family, big home-cooked meals every night. Tina and Randy broke up in 2002 after Tina began a relationship with a coworker, Jeremy Adams, at her job, Delphi Automotive, where she'd begun working in the factory. It was an ugly divorce between her and Randy, but the two eventually reconciled and forged a strong co-parenting relationship. In 2004, she transferred from her job at Delphi Automotive to General Motors in Mansfield, Texas, which is 20 miles south from Fort Worth. She moved her 4 children and Adam, they had big plans of marrying each other in Texas. Her and Adam had a son. I'm also sorry if I mispronounce any of these names. Some of them they're beautiful names, but they're kind of hard to say. Merrick being her 5th kid, but shortly after his birth, they split. Tina was a methamphetamine user most of her life. Unfortunately, she fell into a deep dependence in 2007. After their split, Adams went back to Indiana, taking their son Merrick with him. Mitch moved to a friend's house. Mason and Madison went to live with Randy, her ex-husband, and Miranda, who was 13 at the time, stayed with her mom. Tina rented a 4-bedroom house in Burleson, Texas, which is about 16 miles away from Fort Worth. In 2008, she started dating Ryan Kidd, who also worked at General Motors. He moved into her house and they had a child named Mei Lee. Tina's daughter Miranda, the one that was living with her, is in her late teens with a child of her own, and she moved to Fort Worth with her boyfriend. Eventually, Kidd bought the home they were renting in November 2009, which Kidd being her first ex-husband. 2 years later, they had another son named McKinney, and they eventually married in a courthouse on February 15, 2013. Miranda and Tina's mom, Linda, both reported that in January of 2014, Tina and Kidd went back to Indiana to visit some family, and Kidd put his son into the car and drove back to Texas and left Tina stranded in a motel room. Johnson County records show he filed for divorce when she returned, but the two eventually reconciled during mediation. Later that year, Miranda reported that one of Tina's kids was getting married, and her husband or ex-husband, Kidd, went AWOL and refused to return any of her calls. Miranda, Tina's daughter, said Kidd looked for divorce again when Tina got back on September 22nd. Tina filed the necessary paperwork to make that happen. The judge finalized their divorce on May 18, 2015. In the divorce, they each got stuff, basically. Kidd, which was her ex-husband, got to keep the house and have the kids, whose ages were 6 and 4. After their divorce, Tina split her time between Miranda, which is her daughter's house, and Skeeter, who was one of her trusted friends that she had known since 2007. And at that point, she met Eric Spalding in November 2014 and moved into his house in Arlington the following month. That is how she made her way to Texas, basically.
Wait, I have a question. Like, how did she meet him? Like, what was he? A friend? Or they got together and she moved in?
No, I looked. I mean, like, granted, there was a lot of information about her life. Mm-hmm. But it just said that they met. She was a very social person. From what I understood from all the things that I read up on her, she was a very social person. She was very happy dandy. She would make friends anywhere that she went. Okay. So she probably...
Just like a roommate.
Yeah. Because from what I understood, she didn't find him at work. This is a different person.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Next, I'm going to be talking about James A. Wright. His name is James A. Wright, but everyone called him Jim. So for the purpose of the story, I just called him Jim. He was the youngest of 4 children. He was born and raised in Indiana, and he moved to Austin in 2002 and spent 12 years moving around until he settled in Kyle. People that knew him spoke very highly of him and his character, basically. Everyone said that he was a really kind person, and I have some quotes to back that up. So, quote, he's the kind of guy who takes your call at 2 a.m. when he's got to be up at 5, recounted his childhood friend, Tim Egbert, who lives in Indiana. He also said, quote, your wife's car broke down on the way home from work, so he gets out of bed to pick her up, drives 25 miles to your house to drop her off, then calls a tow truck to bring her car back to his house. He'll fix the car himself and not accept a dime. So... from what I heard from everyone's recounts,
that sounds like crazy nice.
Yeah, but right? But everyone that spoke of him as very highly. Really? So the next things that I'm gonna say is gonna show how good of a person he was, basically. So first, let me do a little bit more about his character. By the way, there was not a lot of information about James, because whenever I was researching, it also said that both of them live pretty private lives. I think that all the information that we got from Tina is from her kids, like talking about the divorces,
okay. Yes.
and talking about the people that she had gotten with and all that stuff. So Jim never married. He worked construction, he rode a Harley, and he liked to stay at the bar, drinking beer until it closed.
Hey, same. No, I'm just kidding.
He often made friends and met new people and used his 3-bedroom house a mile away from Cowell Town Center to host guests. So a lot of the times that's how he would make friends. He would be at the bar and people would tell him, you know, hey, I don't have anywhere to stay. And he would say, oh, don't worry. Come and stay at my house. I have 3 spare bedrooms.
What the I'm sorry. I'm sure he was a very nice guy, but
No, but that's crazy, especially when you hear about something like that. You would not do that in today's day and age, because...
Wait, when was this again? Sorry, what year?
In 2015. I just feel like he was very trusting of people, which ended up causing him his life.
I would not trust people to... Okay, you know what? I'll just listen.
This is another quote that I found talking about his character. Quote, a freaking carny circus sent Michael Shern. Again, I don't know if I'm saying their names right. Sorry. A longtime friend and colleague who helped persuade Jim to move to Kyle. He's one of those guys, some oddball he met at a bar would be like, oh, I didn't have a place to stay. And he told them that he's got a spare bedroom. Not just figuratively, but literally he'd give you the shirt off his back. Which is how I got to the conclusion of the thing that I just told you. Mm-hmm. He was just a really kind person and he would do anything for people, and that's crazy. So now that we know a little bit about both of them, Tina and Jim probably would not have met in real life had it not been for them both being from Indiana. So I feel like that's the one of the couple things actually that brought them together, because like I said, whenever I read about people that knew them talking about them and their character, they're both really friendly people. They're both really nice. They would do anything for everyone else. So yeah, they were alike in that matter. So their first connection happened to be from Tina's cousin, and her name was Christy Upton. Christy had posted something on Facebook talking about where she could get where she could breed blue healers, and in that post, Tina had commented about how she could probably do that in Texas, and then Jim agreed to that, letting her know that he knew a couple people in Texas that would be able to do that. Now, how did Christy and Jim know each other? So they knew each other because they were neighbors. Whenever they were their whole childhood, they lived next to each other, and Christy being Tina's cousin, They never spoke of each other though. I don't know about you, but I don't talk to my neighbors. I know who they are, but we don't really.
She was Tina's cousin, but she was also Jim's neighbor.
Yeah. Oh, whenever they were children, and it's crazy to think about
what is it called?
The world aligning, basically. Yes, that's crazy. But yeah, basically, whenever both of them were commenting on Christy's post, they ended up taking their conversation onto a different forum, and they talked about their shared connections and their mutual friends, also for their hate of Texas drivers, which, agree. Texas drivers are insane.
Horrible.
So it is unclear if they had met up any other time before their death, because basically, fast forward to how this happened, the first time that they met up and hung out was whenever they were murdered.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw a little, not preview, but I saw the name Jim and Tina, and I thought they were a married couple.
No, so okay, from what I understood, I don't even think they were trying to be anything other than friends. What? Because at the time that they were murdered, Tina had a boyfriend.
Okay, was it Eric?
No, it was. Okay. I think it was I had to but I think it was someone else. But yeah, she had a boyfriend at the time that they were murdered. I think that they were just friends, and they wanted to hang out, based on all their common interests, obviously.
Yeah. Now I'm really interested to see how it happened.
So both of the family members on both sides from Jim and Tina said that they were very private people. And they were night owls, as they said. They were mostly active at night, and like I had said, Jim really enjoyed going to the bar, and Tina just enjoyed being up at night. She did most of her tasks at that time. Oh, there was speculation about them meeting up, but there was nothing confirmed. So I don't want to say that they did meet up before their deaths, but there were 3 confirmed references that Jim made about Tina to some of his friends, but there were no confirmed references about Tina talking about Jim to her family. So before they passed, and weeks before Tina died, she was concerned and believed Kid, which is her first ex-husband, was surveilling her. So she was, there is a lot. There was things that like made me question a lot of his actions, which I'll get into further on. But Tina's daughter Miranda passed some texts to the investigators saying that Tina feared she was being watched. Wherever she went, Tina would also send pictures of a Ford Mustang, which happened to be Kid's new girlfriend's car.
What the?
So she...
What the fuck?
Yeah, she had a feeling that she was being watched, and in future interviews, Tina's divorce lawyer spoke about how Kid was very controlling and very manipulative. And so she didn't put it past him surveilling her, basically.
Even with the new girlfriend?
Even with the... And she had a boyfriend. I mean, they were divorced. At this point, I don't know how long they had been divorced, but they were divorced. They weren't together anymore, so... It's just crazy. Oh, and Jim also mentioned to his friend that he had met a guy through construction jobs. His name was Larry Simon. And that Larry had been staying with him but was running behind on his rent. So you know how I told you that Jim had he was a very kind person, and he had those spare bedrooms, and whenever he could, he would let people stay there. And obviously he would charge them and stuff, but this man's Larry was falling behind on his rent. The information I'm about to say are things that happened the day before they were murdered. On Friday, June 19th, one of Jim's colleagues say that Jim told him about how Tina was planning to come and visit him. And Jim was making references about how, since he's a construction worker, that him and his colleague were gonna have some help laying hardwood floor, just like as a little jokey, since Tina was gonna be going there. He also stated that 2 days later, on June 21st, Tina ended up delaying her visit. She wasn't, I don't know how long she was supposed to stay with him, but she ended up staying for longer than she had said she was gonna stay. There were several references made about how Tina was scared to go down there, and as she should have been, because her daughter Miranda gave some messages to interviewers and people that said that she thought that he was stalking her, and that was because she would see a Ford Mustang, which happened to be his new girlfriend's car. So she was a little bit frightened because there were, like I had said, the lawyer was talking about how he was very vindictive and very manipulative with his words. And from what I understood, though, they had a good co-parenting relationship. Okay. I'm assuming it was just like the relationship that they had between each other that was toxic and stuff. The day before they had passed, these are what the accounts were made of their day, basically, or their night. Jim had went to various bars. He started at Zelix, which is in San Marcos, which is about 12 miles away from Kyle. After he went to Zelix, he came back to Kyle, and he went to the Dark Horse Lodge, and he went to the Rail House. After that, he went back to San Marcos around 2 to meet one of the bartenders from one of the bars that he had gone to in San Marcos, and he hung out with that person and ended up coming back home at around 5 or 6. Then he drove back to San Marcos, which is where Zelix is, around 2 a.m. to meet the bartender from the Dark Horse, eventually making his way back to Kyle before sunrise. So he had a long night, because I didn't know what, I don't know, when I was researching, I was like, what's sunrise? But then I was like, it's when the sun fucking rises, dude.
I'm freaking dead.
Which is like around usually like 5, 6.
You didn't know what a sunrise was?
No, well, when I was reading it,
But you
I
know
was
what
like,
a tequila sunrise
goodbye.
is.
Whenever I was reading it, I was just, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, okay? From accounts, we know that he was still awake at 6 a.m., which is around sunrise time. Because his niece Rachel said that she had been on the phone with him and that he needed to catch a nap before Tina showed up. Because, okay, so at some point they had made plans to like hang out with each other, but Tina was kind of hesitant to go meet up with him, and he was telling her that he needs to sleep a little before he meets up with Tina. Which Tina was gonna come and visit, and they were going to have breakfast at Casa Maria's, the one that's off I-35. So he said that he was gonna catch a nap before he was gonna meet up with Tina at Casa Maria's. So Tina arrived to the Cairo area at around 8 a.m. and they ended up eating breakfast together. Did I say breakfast right?
If you guys did not know, Jackie has a lisp. Just thought
she bullies me.
Out there. She's had one ever since. And what, high school you developed it?
No.
You've had it always?
Yes.
Really? I didn't notice until high school when she said breakfast.
Whatever. Anyway, breakfast. She bullies me about it, but so
just trigger warning lisp. Okay, continue.
So there was picture evidence of them being together. Jim had sent 3 selfies of him and Tina. Jim paid the check and then they went back to Jim's house. Miranda, which is Tina's daughter, said that she talked to her mom for a few minutes at around noon, and Tina had to hang up, so she said that she was going to call her back whenever she got the chance. Miranda waited for the call, and she never got the call back. And it's obvious because of the things we're going to be talking about, how they were murdered. And Jim rarely went 1 or 2 hours without texting people back, his family, that being since they lived in Indiana as well. So it was really weird whenever his family was calling and texting him and he wasn't replying. All right. So I know that at the beginning I talked about who Larry Simon was, like briefly, but Larry Simon was Jim's roommate, I could say. He was renting out a room from Jim. So we're gonna talk about Larry. Larry was in Louisiana's custody for 14 years for 2 counts of simple burglary and 1 count of aggravated battery, according to a spokesperson from Louisiana's Department of Correction, to say that Simon beat the pulp out of a bar patron after deciding this person had moved too close to his wife.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He was a very violent person.
So he beat the shit out of someone because he got too close. That person got too close to his wife?
Yeah. Holy fuck. Whenever Larry was released from prison in 2012, he had to go to Texas to go live with his wife since that's where she was living, and they had to release him into someone's custody. But yeah, he moved to Texas with his wife, and then there was an altercation between both of them. From what I remember, I think that he had beaten her, and so then he ended up being like without a home because he abused his wife. Mm-hmm. The way that Jim and Larry met is because they both worked in construction. They ended up being co-workers at some point at one of the jobs, and Larry kind of told his story to Jim, and Jim felt endeavored to like help him. Since I'm not sure if Jim knew like
the whole story.
The whole story about who Larry was, because okay. I mean, I would not let a violent ass person live with me. Mm-hmm. Especially if I knew that he was convicted. It's just a lot. Especially because Larry was in jail for 14 years. Imagine that. It would have had to be something very...
Yeah.
At some point, he made references about how Larry wasn't paying his rent. and he was like at least 3 months behind on rent. But he would see Larry purchase a lot of alcohol, which he was just kind of upset about. Not really too upset, because I mean he drank too, but he was more upset over the fact that he would choose to purchase drinks over paying his rent, which is he was already being a kind person letting him stay in his house. But yeah, also Jim made some references to his family about how he wanted to have a come to Jesus moment with Larry. I'm now going to be talking about what happened the day of their murders. There's not too much information about like what Jim and Tina did before they passed. Like, we know that they met up for breakfast at Casa Maria's, but there's not really too much information about like what happened in between that and them being murdered. So Jim didn't go to work the Monday that he died because the hardwood floors hadn't shown up for his job site. And I don't know if you remember, but earlier I talked about how he told one of his coworkers that on Monday they were going to have help putting down the hardwood floors, since he had told him that Tina was gonna be coming over. So that's what it's referencing to. A subcontractor said that Jim called him before breakfast to say that he would provide an update around lunch, but Jim never made that second call. That same subcontractor said he called Jim 4 or 5 times Monday afternoon and another time on Tuesday before stopping by his house on Wednesday. So this person was really trying to check. I mean, because like I had said, everyone said that it was rare that he wouldn't answer a call, let alone return a call. So at this point, it had been 3 days.
3 days.
That no one had heard anything from.
Oh my God.
Jim or Tina. The contractor also said that when he showed up on Wednesday, he saw Jim's red Chevy Avalanche in the driveway next to Tina's white Mercedes-Benz. So both of their cars were in the driveway. So the subcontractor said he noticed the curtains were closed in every window of the house, something he says he had never seen before at Jim's house. And I was wary of putting this into the episode because I was like, people have their blinds closed all the fucking time. Like, why would this be like anything other than that? You know, like people just want privacy. But there was a second person that said that it was really weird that he had his blinds closed because apparently he didn't even lock his door.
What?
His doors were always open for people. If someone needed a place to stay, it was always open. And the people that knew him knew where his spare key was.
That's crazy. That sounds like a very rare person to me, because maybe it was in another time, like 2015, but that sounds crazy to me.
He said that he checked both the front and the back doors and they were both locked, which, like I said, was very uncharacteristic of him since he had his doors open all the time. And he also attempted to open the door in the garage. So he had that garage area where you put your cars and then there's another door there. And he said that one was also locked. The subcontractor also said that he looked into Jim's truck. On his dashboard sat a J&A construction checkbook for his contracting business. And like I had told you, the spare key. He said that he was looking for the spare key and that it was missing from its usual spot, which is very uncharacteristic of Jim since he always had an open door, basically. That day, the subcontractor had called the Kyle police asking for a welfare check for Jim. An officer later got in contact with the contractor to let him know that they found a receipt for Casa Maria's outside, but they could not break the door unless someone in the family had requested it, which he was kind of like, he just wanted to make sure that his friend was okay, and but I don't know if he had any contact with his family or like he knew or had the contact information of his family, so there's that. There was another friend and colleague named Michael that says he went to Jim's house on Thursday morning to get a ladder Jim had borrowed. So he also noticed that the blinds were closed and that Tina's Mercedes was parked outside, but thought nothing of it since he knew that they had a light workload that week, so he just thought that him and Tina had went out of town. Back in Indiana, Jim's family was getting nervous. Basically because they hadn't heard anything from him in days. And at that point, it was really weird because they would talk very frequently. I don't know if it was an everyday thing or what, but they talked very frequently. One of Jim's sisters said that she called Jim a lot of times. she said that she had been calling him since Monday, and that sometime on Tuesday that she got a message on his voice. You know, whenever someone doesn't pick up, it goes to voicemail. Yeah. She said that the voicemail said that it was full and that she could no longer leave any more messages.
That is scary.
Yeah. So she had said that she was trying to reach her brother, and that Jim's other brother was trying to reach him as well. So on Monday, she left a voice message and tried calling him again after lunch, but his inbox was full. When she tried calling early evening, she said that the mailbox had been emptied.
What the?
So that means that he would have had to still been alive.
Yeah.
You would think. But no, we later come to find out that they had already passed.
Yeah.
They were already murdered. So someone else cleared out all those messages. On Thursday evening, Jim's father said that he called Kyle Police Department asking for a welfare check on Jim. Since they were worried since he hadn't returned any of their calls. One of Jim's friends, her name is Lisa, she has a son named Brock. And this Brock was driving home from work, which so happened to be between his job and his home was Jim's house. So he said that whenever he was driving home, he saw a police car in the area. And he thought it was weird. So whenever he got home, he told his mom that there was police at Jim's home. After they had a conversation, he left to go back out to go get food. And he said that whenever he drove past Jim's house, that there was more police cars and there was a coroner, or what he thought was a coroner. And he also said that he saw Larry Simon outside, since at that point he was still living with Jim, and he had a slight conversation with Larry, asking him what was going on. And Larry said that he didn't know what was going on, but that he wasn't allowed inside to get any of his stuff, since, like I said, he was living there. After that happened, Jim's family was still waiting for a call back from the cop police. Jim's father said that the day of at 10:30, he was hoping for an update. At that point, it was already 12:30 a.m. and he called again, and he got no response. The family also said that the police was very uncooperative of giving them any information.
That's horrible. I hate when families go through that.
Yeah, and it's sad because they weren't even living in Texas.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to hear anything, it was hard because they weren't in the state.
Yeah.
Both of the families were kept in the dark. That a lot of the information that they were finding was from news articles, which is really sad. Very sad. And they also learned a bunch of things from, like, the interviews that the Kyle police was giving, like, to the news.
Yeah.
And there were certain times where they would tell them stuff, like, let's say the Kyle police was talking to Jim's dad, but then they wouldn't also inform Tina's family. And I mean, it was kind of hard since they weren't married, they weren't anything, so it was just kind of hard getting the information through to people. So the two families ended up being pretty close after this event because they had to talk back and forth with each other, since, like I said, the information was either given to one side of the family or the other, never to both. So they had to talk a lot since their information was very scattered.
Yeah.
So at 4:30 a.m. the next day, after he had already called for the welfare check and after the police had already gone and there was the coroner and everything, it was a day after where a local sheriff in Jim's father's town came over and told him that he had to call the Kyle Police Department, and whenever he did call, they informed him that Jim had passed away. So it took a lot of time basically for them to know any of the information, which is really upsetting because
that's their family.
You would think, especially after calling the welfare and Jim's father calling multiple times to get any information about what was going on, and he couldn't do anything about it. And it's horrible. Imagine not knowing what happened to your son and not even being able to do anything about it because you're living in a whole different state.
Yeah.
Miranda, who is Tina's daughter, said that she didn't start to worry about her mother's absence until Monday night, when she had realized her mom had never called her back. Like I said, she had a small conversation with her that Monday, and then Tina said that she was going to call her back whenever she got a chance, and then she never got a call back. So Miranda drove to her mom's boyfriend's house. Like I had told you earlier, Tina was seeing someone at that time. and she left a note on his door that asked him to call her. When Tina's boyfriend finally called Miranda, she learned him and Tina got into a fight on Sunday night over how he didn't like when she brought her young children to his house. So she grabbed her stuff from his house and drove off.
That's horrible as a boyfriend. Sorry to say it, but
especially because she had 7 kids, dude.
Yeah, I mean, as a mom, like, your kids are everything. So for him to tell her that, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so she got really upset and she drove off. On that Friday morning at 6 a.m., Ryan Kidd, which was Tina's ex-husband, called Miranda and told her that Tina had passed. Well, he told her and Tina's boyfriend at the time. So that's how they found out through her ex-husband. So now I'm going to talk about how they were found. Their bodies were found on Thursday, June 25th, 2015. Police were responding to a welfare check after 8 p.m. at 810 South Sledge Street in Cow. Jim Wright, being 45, was found in the hallway of his home, and Tina Combs, who was 44 at the time, was found in the master bedroom down the hall. They found that Tina was killed by gunshot and stabbing, while Jim died instantly from a bullet to the head. The Cow Police Department wasn't very forthcoming with any of the new information happening, so both of the families kind of had to pass information back and forth to each other. Jim was cremated because in addition to the gunshot wound that he had suffered, he had post-mortem injuries. So he was either beaten or I couldn't find their autopsy reports because there was not a lot of information released by the Cow Police Department. The article that I used was information that the families had given to the people that were writing the article. So he was cremated, like I said. In addition to the gunshot, he had suffered post-mortem injuries. And Tina's body, she did have a viewing, but they had to tie a scarf around her neck because she had knife wounds. I'm assuming, that's why I'm saying though, like, because the autopsy was never released, I'm not really sure exactly the full report of her injuries. But from this, I'm assuming that she had stab wounds on her neck, which is why they had to put the scarf. And Miranda said that her mother's hands were swollen with a few fingernails broken.
So she was fighting.
Yeah. Which, quote, she said, "My mom was feisty. I know she fought for her life."
Oh,
which is really sad to hear. Because, I mean, it was her daughter. That's all these things. Especially because Miranda was the only kid that ended up staying with her after the divorce, like living with her. So I know that her and Miranda were the closest, which most of these things that I found were from Miranda. Because she was very forthcoming with things to talk about her mom. On August 2nd, members of Jim's family drove to Kyle from Indiana to take any of the things that were left at his home. But it was a sight whenever they got there. I think that they stayed for the weekend. I think they had shown up on Friday and then ended up leaving on Sunday. But they ended up having to stay at his house, like, to sleep, which I would not have.
Oh, God, no.
I would have probably found somewhere else to stay because that is traumatic. Yeah. I mean, he died in that house. So, I don't know. I feel like that's really horrible for them to have to stay in the house where their son was murdered, their brother was murdered. Like,
I don't know how they did it. That's crazy.
Yeah. But the family said that there was pieces of drywall missing, floor pieces were scraped, and a bunch of his items were removed from the home because they were deemed hazardous because of the amount of, I'm assuming, blood found all over the things.
Oh.
They had to be taken into evidence. And this led me to believe that they were murdered in a really vicious way. Mm-hmm. I mean, if there was blood splattered on the wall, on the floor, on his stuff. Also, Chuck, which is Jim's older brother, one of Jim's older brothers, said that Jim owned at least 6 guns and that one of them was missing.
Oh.
And as we know, they were both murdered by gunshot wounds. Yeah. So there's that. But okay, let me just continue. Miranda Hall had Miranda, being Tina's daughter, had driven down from Dallas, which is where she was staying, at this around the same time that Jim's family was there, and she was going to pick up her mom's car since that's the only thing that was left there was her mom's car after she had driven down there. But she ended up finding Jim's family there, and they ended up having a conversation, and that's how they exchanged information about what had happened, what they knew about the case, or anything like that. And by mid-August, the Cal Police Department had finally made the incident public, and they put out information about the case because they needed help. And I will be including a news clip that I found from 2015 where basically the news reporter was saying that the Cal Police Department was looking for help in their death.
2 deceased adults, 1 male and 1 female. The male was identified as James Wright Jr., and the female was identified as Tina Renee Combs. Mr. Wright was a resident at that address, and Miss Combs was determined to be a guest and a visitor from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A criminal investigation immediately began into the cause and manner of their deaths, and I'm here today to announce that an arrest has been made. We have arrested Larry Simon, 47 years old, most recently of Louisiana, and charged him with 2 counts of capital murder. He currently sits in the Hays County Jail without bond. Although the members of the family could not be here today, I have a statement that they have shared with us that I'm going to share with you at this time. This is from the Wright family. Today, the Wright family wants to express gratitude to all of the many friends of our dear Jimmy that have been so supportive of us through these difficult years. News of this arrest does not bring our family any joy. We only hope that if the suspect is found guilty, justice will help keep him from hurting another family the way that he has hurt ours. We ask that the media respect our privacy during this time, and as we continue to work towards acceptance of losing our son, Mr. and Ms. Charles and Carolyn Wright.
So whenever the summary was finally made public, Kid was made to be one of the suspects, which is Tina's ex-husband. The first ex-husband was one of the suspects, and the other
see that coming.
Yeah, and the other suspect was Simon, which is Jim's roommate. So Jim's friends around Kyle wondered where Simon spent his time immediately after the murder, since he had been living at Jim's place for weeks. Yet there was no implication that he had returned to the house at any point between Monday and Thursday night when police had showed up. He's been seen in Kyle and disconnected his phone from the previous phone number that he had. The only way that I know this is because I think the person that wrote this article tried reaching out to him, and it said that it was a different phone. The phone number was discontinued or something. Since Tina and Jim's death, Simon had been arrested 3 more times. Twice in the Hays County and once in Travis County, which, for people that don't live in Texas, Travis County is 30 minutes away from the Hays County, which is the Kyle area. On October 18, 2015, Larry Simon was picked up on a DW and spent 10 days in the Hays County Jail. On November 19, 2015, he was arrested and sent to Travis County Jail for 15 days after trying to steal clothing and 2 watches from JCPenney. Crazy. He pled no contest to this charge, which is the burglary charge. On January 15, 2016, he was picked up on a warrant and spent 20 or more days in Hays County. For this one, he was charged with assault, and it was a Class A misdemeanor. But there was mixed feelings on his involvement from people that personally knew him, which this is what I was telling you about earlier, that people said this. Quote, "It's not like Larry to use a gun," said Anonymous. He was a very physically powerful individual. He had temperamental issues, and if he were the person who had been the perpetrator of this crime, he would have beaten and stabbed them to death. End quote.
That's a very scary thing for someone to say of someone. Even though, it's, they're defending him, but, damn.
No, I don't... What would make you say those words?
Yeah.
Especially because now that we know, she was stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
So, What would make
And
you
who
make that
said-
statement?
Who was saying this?
It's an anonymous person.
Oh, okay.
So, for all we know, it could have been Larry himself. Because it wasn't put out, like, who it was. And that's a crazy... Like, I was baffled when I read that. I was like, who would say something like that?
Yeah.
Same with Kid, her ex... Because there was doubts on both of these suspects from different people. Obviously. Usually there is. That's usually how it goes. There's always people doubting who the suspect is. But Miranda Hall reported that he provided an alibi that checked out with the Cow Police Department. But after people learned how messy their divorce had been between them, both Jim and Tina's family members believed he had committed the crime or he knew who did. I don't know. I kind of seems highly unlikely to me, because why would he send someone to kill Jim too? Like, if he wanted his ex-wife dead, why would he want...
I mean, it could be like he was jealous. But I mean, he has a new girlfriend. I don't know.
And she had married after him.
Yeah. So why wouldn't he kill the other boyfriend?
And like, they weren't even together. They were just friends.
Yeah.
And you're right. Tina at that time had a boyfriend. She had, I think it was 2 other ex-husbands. So I'm just like, she had multiple people that she was with. Why would it, if it was him, like, why would it be whenever she was with Jim? Like, that just seems really unlikely to me. So this is where I was telling you. So Selena McCanus, which was Tina's divorce lawyer, called up the Cow Police Department after she found out that Tina had been murdered, and she offered Kid up as a suspect, calling him vindictive, and also accused him of making up evidence during their custody hearing, which Kid had most of the had custody for at least 2 of the children that they had together, because Miranda was one of his kids, or one of the kids between them, and she ended up staying with Tina, but the 2 other kids stayed with him. So I don't know what the arrangement there was. It wasn't very clear, but yeah. Also, everyone said that Kid was very cagey with Tina's family after the death, so that he wouldn't really talk to them, and every time that they tried calling him, that he wouldn't answer. He was just very distant from them after her death. He bought a house in Texas, which was in Alvarado, Texas, which was 181 miles away from Kyle, and it's south of Dallas, which is around the area that Tina was staying at or living at before she drove down to Kyle. And then he sold that area, or the house that he had bought there, and on September 30th, he went to her bank and gave them her death certificate and took the remaining balance out of her bank. That's also, I feel like, why he was offered up as a suspect, because a lot of the things that he did after she had passed away were very, like, weird. And, well, I didn't know him as a person, but from what I heard, he was not a very good person to begin with.
Yeah.
And him doing all these things were kind of weird to the family. I don't know how he was with the family when they were married, but they said that it was not like him and his character from what they knew. The case was not solved until February 2nd of 2021. So let that sink in. This event happened in 2015, and it didn't end up being solved until 2021. And the family believed that the Cow Police Department was doing nothing for their family.
Yeah,
they
usually don't.
Also, a lot of people said that they should have sought out people that knew what they were doing. You know, because like I said, murder doesn't really happen here, or didn't happen here, especially in 2015. Before this, I didn't find any other cases of murder in Kyle. I also read up on one of the articles. It said that before this murder case, there was only 2 reported murder cases in Kyle.
What?
But yeah, so the case, and I say solved very lightly because, like I said, I tried looking really, really hard to see any charges being made on the suspect that they chose as their person. I didn't find anything. So,
but the case is closed.
No, it was undetermined. They said that they found their suspect, and they said that this person was put into jail, But after that, there was no other coverage. There was nothing said
Like
that said that he was
murder.
Yeah, that he was convicted. They said that he was up for a conviction of murder or manslaughter, I think, but it was never confirmed. So I'm not sure if this person is still in jail, what happened, if they got sentenced, or what happened.
They probably haven't gotten sentenced yet.
Which is crazy because 2021, we're in 2024. That was like 3 years.
9 years since the case started.
Yeah. Kyle police arrested 47-year-old Larry Simon of Louisiana on 2 capital murder charges on Tuesday, February 2nd. There was no bond set, and the city asked for a bond of $500,000. So
wait, so is there any like ulterior motive that they found as to why he would have killed them, or he just killed them?
No, there literally was none. And it's crazy because you remember how earlier I was telling you about how Jim was thinking about having a come to Jesus moment with him, about how he needs to pay his rent.
Yeah,
I don't think that conversation ever happened. So if you would have thought that anything would have set him off, I would have thought it would have been that.
Yeah.
But he never had that conversation with him.
Okay, so I do think it was Larry because it just makes more sense. Like, they were in the house, and maybe they had an argument in that moment that we don't know of. But it does make more sense, like, our ulterior motive-wise for
the ex-husband?
Yeah.
That's who I thought it was this whole time. Because he had so many reasons to want to kill her.
Yeah, but it just doesn't make sense on the timing.
It doesn't. That's one thing.
The timing wise, and like who he killed. Like, why would he just kill Jim like randomly?
Yeah, that was weird. But maybe it could have been so it looked staged that something else happened, like a robbery. Someone was trying to
private investigator. That makes sense.
That does make sense. But the reason that I thought that it was Kid, was because Tina, before she passed, she told her daughter that she had seen Kid's new girlfriend's car following her around.
Yes.
Why would that be? If they were living in the Dallas area, why would they be in Kyle? Why would she see her car in Kyle? But friends of Tina said that they had seen Kid recently in November at a Chick-fil-A, and that he was with his 2 kids. And Miranda was the person that saw him, and she said that she waved to him, and he pretended like he didn't know who she was. Yeah.
Even though that's her kid.
Yeah.
That's his kid,
yeah.
Sorry.
And it was because she had her doubts about his involvement in what was going on. So, but he isolated himself away from their family. So he has both of the kids, both of these kids that I'm talking about are from a different marriage of his. Okay. So it's her step
siblings.
Brothers or sisters. Yeah. Also, the newspaper or the article people that I got this from said that they reached out to a Kid, and this is the conversation that they had, which was kind of weird to me. So I wanted to include it. Kid sounded anxious and off guard when reached out by the Chronicle in late January on his new number, because he had changed his number as well. The Chronicle had reached out to him multiple times before that, and after that he ended up changing his number. Austin Chronicle: I'm calling about the death of your ex-wife. Is that something you can talk about? Kid replied, not really. I mean, that's, I wouldn't like to talk about it really. So the article people said, is there an attorney who we can talk to about it? And then Kid said, that's, not sure what you're looking for here. I don't feel comfortable. I'm going to have to let you go. Court documents show Simon was charged with possessing a small amount of drugs on Monday. So that's how they got him into jail in the first place. But after that, that's whenever they charged him with had the charges of him for capital murder. But that's whenever I told you that there was no further information. So I don't know if he actually got charged with it, if he pled guilty, if he pled whatever. Innocent, so there was that. Kyle police shared a statement on behalf of Jim Wright's family. It read, "Today, the Wright family wants to express gratitude to all the many friends of our dear Jimmy that have been so supportive of us through these difficult years. News of his arrest does not bring our family any joy. We only hope that if the suspect is found guilty, justice will help keep him from hurting another family the way that he hurt us. We ask that the media respect our privacy during this time and as we continue to work towards acceptance of losing our son." I don't know if it just hasn't gone to court yet. I don't know if it's on hold.
Well, if any updates come out, we will definitely let you guys know.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I like how you found like an open-ended one where like you really don't know who it is, because mine were solved.
Yeah.
But I will say that it was really hard for me to find any cases in Kyle to begin with, because all the ones that I found were either like very short or they just weren't solved yet.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm gonna move on to my last story. It is very short, I will say, but it is very disturbing to me. I was reading this at work. I was trying to do some research on it, and it just made me really nauseous thinking about it. Okay, so this took place in January 5th of 2017. We're going to be talking about a child named Giovanna Hernandez. She was 5 years old at the time, and she was the child of Crystal Concepcion Villanueva and Refugio Hernandez Jr. And then Refugio's parents are Estrugio and Nancy Arayano. So police received a call from Estrugio. He said that he had been stabbed by Crystal in the back and head, and he had fled. So the mom, Crystal, stabbed Estrugio in the back, but she stayed in the house with the child. At the same time that the police received this call, Crystal also called the police, and she told them that she had killed her daughter after she asked for cereal, and then stabbed her father-in-law. What? So she admitted to it.
Right? On the call to the police?
On the call to the police. She told them that she had killed her daughter and stabbed her father-in-law. After the call and after the police had gotten there, SWAT broke into the home and found Crystal nude, fresh out of the shower. So she had taken a shower after she killed her daughter. They found the child dead and decapitated. Yeah, so she decapitated her daughter. But she pleaded innocent. Reason of insanity. So pretty much what she said, the reason why she killed her daughter was because she thought that they had both been replaced by clones, and that she had to kill them for them to come back to life. So for them, the original their original selves to come back to life.
Wait, because you said that she stabbed her daughter and who else?
And her father-in-law. And it makes me like very emotional to think of what the child was going through in the moment, and like her thoughts of like her mom like coming at her with like a knife, you know? It's just very like, I don't know. I can't. So yeah, so she pled innocent, and supposedly the lawyer said that she had suffered from psychosis for years and had previously been treated for mental health problems. But the persecution, or the other side, I guess, is saying that it's because of drug abuse, because they did find alcohol and weed in her system. So they think it had to do with her just being like completely out of it from drug use. Crystal Villanueva was found guilty Wednesday after a 2-week trial of capital murder of a child under 10 and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So she tried to appeal that sentence and was denied, and is now serving life in prison without the possibility of parole. Children are just so innocent and so pure, and it breaks my heart that something like that could happen to a child. I think we want to do another episode like going more in depth into mental health issues. Yeah, I mean, I think this possibly could be a case of that, because she was quote unquote being treated for psychosis and stuff like that. But the other side of it was her doing drugs.
Sometimes though, there is certain things that will push you into like that psychosis, and the drugs could have been the thing. And I'm not excusing her actions by any way, shape, or form, because that is horrible to do that to a child. But like, if you weren't in the right state of mind to even know what you were doing, like if she really thought that it was a clone, or like that she needed that it was a clone, and that she needed to kill the child so that it would be what is it, like reincarnate as her real child?
Yeah, for her real child to come back.
Like, that's, I don't know. Unless she was making that up. I mean, there's a lot of times that I've thought that like the people that are accused of these things are like making it up and just like,
yeah. Well, it's just so hard to tell, because take in mind that she did call the police herself. Yeah. And like turned herself in.
Which is what leads me to think that like she really wasn't in a...
But when you really think about it, if she was really thinking that it was clones, wouldn't she call the police and say like, oh, there's clones here, like I killed them, instead of saying like I killed my child?
But like, why call the police? Like, let's say that if she wanted to get away with it, why would she even tell anyone?
Well, if she wanted to get away with it, she wouldn't have been able to, because Estrugio was there.
Yeah. Oh,
And
true. Right.
He was a
Didn't he call
witness.
The police too?
Yes, he called the police
Okay.
too. So I think it could have been one or two things. Either she was really deep into psychosis and she really did think that, because it can happen, you know, or the other part of it was like she lost her temper, she lost her shit, you know, being off really drunk and you know, high or whatever, and then did it and then realized that she wouldn't have been able to get away with it and called the police and then came up with the story.
All right, so those were our stories, and I'm sorry if we were all over the place. This was our first like true crime episode. Yes. We're gonna get better as we go along, because I just felt like I was all over the place. I had all these talking points and I was ready. Like, I had read this story multiple times, and I just, as soon as the microphone turned on, I forgot how to talk.
They probably won't notice it because I'm gonna try to edit it. But I wish I could hear the unedited raw version of this. I'm
really, really sorry. Like, we wanted to get to a point where we were able to tell the story for these families, like the horrible things that happened to these victims, you know, but it was just a lot. Honestly, as soon as I heard Paloma's stories, I was really unsettled, and I don't know.
Also, to bring awareness to cases like this, and be wary of what's happening around you.
Yeah, be vigilant of your surroundings, because
big words.
Things, I don't know, I just always think about how things like this happen all over the world, but you don't ever really think about it because like you're unaware of it.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
Yeah, and I also want to apologize because my stories were super short, but we will be moving into bigger regions, I feel like, so it'll be probably easier to find
more stories. Yeah, since it's not going to be in a confined area, because this episode was only of cases that we found in Kyle, Texas, but then the next true crime episode that we're going to do is about things that happen in North Texas.
No, the next episode next week that we will be putting out will be of horror stories.
Yeah, so if this wasn't your jam, the next one is, we're going to be reading stories that we found on the internet about things that happen in Texas.
Yes.
Spooky stories in Texas.
We apologize if our uploading isn't really on schedule. We have a lot going on.
Yeah, there is a lot going on.
It was really hard. Jackie edited the first episode, but I could tell it was a lot on her to edit.
It took me like 2 weeks to finish editing it, and it was just a lot because the app, or the app that we were using was being stupid. So
yeah, and we will be editing one episode each, like alternating the weeks. So if you see different editing styles, that's probably what it's gonna be.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you if you've listened thus far. I'm very sorry if you hear.
Yeah, you're traumatized now. I'm sorry.
But yeah, like we said, we don't mean any disrespect to any of these families of the people involved in this.
And our condolences to all the families of
anyone that you lost.
And just keep these people in your thoughts, these families in your thoughts. I'd say prayers if you're religious. I hope these cases help you
have a different view in life. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that I know that aren't very hyper vigilant of like their surroundings, but like things like this happen all the time. And to think that Kyle is getting more dangerous, it's just crazy. So just be vigilant of your surroundings. Be wary of the people that you're talking to. Just make sure that you're always safe, because things like this happen out of nowhere. It could happen in a split second. So just try to be always safe.
Spray, carry your taser. All of that. But thank you guys for listening.
Thank you guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.